Welcome to Fighting Words, spiritual sparring for rank-and-file believers. I'm Brother Logan, Director of Education for the Hospitallers of St. Martin and co-creator of Gruntworks. Each week, I march us through the Sunday lectionary readings, dragging biblical interpretation back to rank-and-file believers where it belongs. Sometimes, I also interview companions along the way who are engaged in their own wrestling match with the Word. Thanks for joining us. Let's get it on. Isaiah chapter 58, verses 1 through 9. Cry aloud and don't hold back. Lift up your voice like it's a trumpet and declare to the people their faults, and to the house of Jacob their crimes. They seek me day by day and desire to know my ways, as a people that had done righteousness and had not forsaken the judgment of their God. They now ask of me righteous judgment and desire to draw near to God, saying, Why have we fasted, and why do you not see us? Why have we afflicted our souls, and you did not know it? No, in the days of your fasts y'all find your pleasures, and all those under your power y'all hurt. I can see y'all fasting for quarrels and strifes, and striking the lowly with your fists. That's why y'all fast to me today. Is it any more than mere virtue signaling? Is this how I taught you to fast? To openly afflict your soul? There's no need to bend over backwards to spread under you sackcloth and ashes. Is this what you think I asked for? What I asked for, what I chose, says the Lord, is to loose the burdens you place on others, to untie the knots of your unfair contracts, set the bruised free, and cancel every unjust debt. Break your bread with the hungry and invite the unsheltered poor to your house. If you see someone naked, clothe them, and you shall not disregard your own relatives. Then your light will break forth like the coming of dawn, and your integrity shall be clear to all, and your righteousness shall be the talk of the town, and the glory of God shall surround you. That is when your cry to God will be heard. Psalm 112, verses 1 through 10. Blessed is the one that respects Yahweh. They'll greatly delight in their commandments. His wild oats will be sown across the earth. His upright generation will be a blessing. Glory and riches shall be in his house, and his righteousness endures forevermore. Anyone looking can see when light has sprung up in darkness. They will know pity and show mercy and be righteous. The good person is one who pities and shares. They will direct their affairs with prudence, for they shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be remembered forever. Believers shall not be afraid of any lonely report. Their heart is trained to trust in the Lord. Their heart is well founded. They shall not be afraid, and eventually their desire for their enemies will take place. They have dispersed their wealth widely, given to the poor. Their righteousness endures forevermore. Their name shall be remembered with honor. The assholes shall see and be offended. They'll gnash their teeth and they'll be consumed away. Their desire shall be out of their reach. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. When I came to you folks, I didn't come with lofty speech or highfalutin wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you except Joshua Christ and their crucifixion. I was with you in weakness and fear and all kinds of trembling. My practice and my preaching were not in persuasive words of worldly wisdom, but in demonstrating the Spirit and power, that your faith wouldn't stand in the wisdom of humanity, but in the power of God. We speak wisdom, however, among those who are full grown, yet a wisdom not of this world, nor of the rulers of this world who are coming to nothing, but we speak God's wisdom in a mystery, the wisdom that's been hidden, which God knew before creating anything, for our glory, which none of the rulers of this world seem to have known. For had they known it, they wouldn't have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, things which an eye didn't see and an ear didn't hear, which didn't enter into the heart of humanity, these God has prepared for those who love him. But to us, God revealed them through the Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yes, the deep things of God. For who among men knows the things of a person except the spirit of that which is in him? Even so, no one knows the things of God except God's Spirit. But we received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that were freely given to us by God. We also speak these things not by words of human wisdom, but by those the Holy Spirit teaches, comparing spiritual things with spiritual things. Now the worldly folk don't receive the things of God's Spirit, for they are foolishness to them, because nobody can know divine things without spiritual discernment. But anyone spiritual can discern all things, and will be judged by no one. For who has known the mind of the Lord that they have any reason to feel superior? But we have Christ's mind. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 through 20. You're the salt of the world. If the salt loses its flavor, what purpose does it serve? It would be good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under the feet of men. Be a light for the world. A city located on a hill isn't made to be hidden. In the same way, a lamp isn't made to be put under a basket, but on a stand, and it shines for all in the house who are in need. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good works and glorify our Father in heaven. Don't think that I came to do away with Torah or the prophets. I didn't come to destroy, but to fulfill. For most certainly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not even the dot of an I or a crossed T shall be in any way taken from Torah, until all things are finished. Therefore, whoever wants to break one of these small commandments and teach others to do so shall be called small in the Republic of Heaven. But whoever practices and preaches them shall be called great in the Republic of Heaven. That's because our righteousness must exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees. There's no other way to enter the heavenly republic. Welcome to Fightin' Words. This is Brother Logan Isaac, broadcasting from the Chapter House in Albany, Oregon. And you'll see I've changed my clothes once again because this is my third attempt at recording the reflection for this morning's readings, which come to us from Isaiah 58, Psalm 112, 1 Corinthians 2, and Matthew 5. And I mistakenly skipped over 1 Corinthians 2, 1 through 13, so I inserted it back in there. But I wanted to focus on that today because the dichotomy, the false dichotomy that we've inherited in the Greek between wisdom and rulership, when I'm a foreign national. As Christians, we're foreign to almost any state that you can imagine because we were meant to be outsiders. The word Hebrew or Ibri or Ibrim in Hebrew means someone from way over there, from some foreigner, someone else, something unknown. And so we're called to be what a former professor of mine called resident aliens. There's a Hebrew term for it in the Hebrew Bible. I can't remember what it is. And the term I prefer is foreign national, because it reminds us that nationalism is a thing. Christian nationalism is not a thing unless it's Hebrew nationalism, but that may be a point for another podcast. But rulership and wisdom. In Greek, basileus, which I've said elsewhere, in first century Palestine, basileus and a basilikos, a little king or a royal official, they suddenly had become somewhere below the emperor. Now, as a reminder, before the first century, 43 years before the first century, in 43 BCE, was the Battle of Philippi. Yes, that Philippi, the Christian community of Philippi, also known as the Philippians, and Saul's letter to them. Philippi was where the battle of the Republic, or where the Republic died. Octavian, who would later become Augustus, that's where he defeated the people who had risen up and killed Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is the first emperor, and Brutus, Longinus, Cassius Brutus, and one other guy I can't remember, they fought against Mark Antony and Octavian. And Mark Antony and Octavian, fighting for empire, in contrast to republic, they win. So in 43 BCE, the empire wins and the republic is dead. The republic in Greek was called the Politeia. That appears in Acts 22, where Claudius Lysias talks about, what politeia is this? I had to pay a large sum of money for it. Sometimes you'll read it as freedom or citizenship, but that is the Greek word for the thing that preceded the empire. Back to Basileus. Basileus in Greek then becomes something underneath the emperor and empire. Herod was beneath the Augustes. Anyway, Herod was a client king. So King Basileus is now underneath. The emperor and the Sebastia, I can't remember what it is in Greek, but basically when you hear polite or politeia, that is a term that still within just a lifetime ago meant the republic. So when I talk about Basileus or I talk about the kingdom of heaven, I'm going to say republic because it makes all things public, or it tries to. On the other hand, that's rulership and leadership. We sometimes think in English as ruler is someone who has a crown on their head with jewels, etc. But ruler also is something that helps us draw straight lines, helps us measure distances. And so that dual meaning, I'm deliberately exploiting. I'm deliberately saying that a ruler with a crown on the head is not the right linguistic ground. Ruler, like something you use for math and science, that is the right linguistic ground. It is the standard by which you make other good and reliable and true shit. You want a quote-unquote true straight line, you need a ruler. If you need to know however many inches or meters or cubits something is, you need a ruler. And so that's ruler. On the other hand, we have Sophia, wisdom. And we have an entire book of wisdom that was apocryphal or deuterocanonical. Some Bibles have it, some don't. But Sophia was the partner to logoi or logos, which is logic, which is the word. Sophia is personified as a woman and is thought to be the necessary counterweight to logic. Logic and wisdom are supposed to be two complementary things. And if you want to talk about Logos and Yahweh, the word is Yahweh, but also the Asherot that used to be present before the monopolizing of power and meaning making under David when everything was centralized. Anyway, Sophia is supposed to accompany logic at all times. Sophia, wisdom, and rulership is only possible authoritatively if you have logic. If it's something public that everybody can access. Plato talked about, and Socrates, one of the things that they did with thought experiments was, I wonder if slaves can understand simple principles, first principles, 2 + 2 = 4, that kind of thing. And they could. They found that logic was innate to humanity, not to most other animals. And so logic becomes this constant in the Western mindset. That's why I say Sophia and rulership, basilikos, or politeia, politics, and wisdom are like a trinity, that they're supposed to exist concomitantly. Wisdom, politics, and logic. And Paul, I think, is doing some work here in 1 Corinthians 2, drawing on what to him would have been a quote-unquote foreign meaning-making system. He claims to be a Hebrew of Hebrews. He likely studied under Gamaliel, who was one of the best rabbis at the time. And yet he's doing these things in Greek. He's making these lofty letters in really complex Greek. In contrast, the Greek Old Testament, the Septuagint, is in kind of basic Greek. They're not trying to do anything special. They're trying to take what was special in Hebrew and put it in Western frame. And they did okay. I'm fascinated by the Septuagint because it's the oldest complete manuscripts that we have, but the Hebrew behind it is what's really important. When we read Hebrew Bibles, the Jewish Publication Society's Tanakh, they're using vowels that were not prescribed until the 9th century. The Bible is supposed to have flexibility. The Hebrew Bible is supposed to have some flexibility. These consonants of Hebrew, when you leave out vowels, it allows for a certain flex room in language and meaning. When that was shut down in the 9th century, that's when I'm like, do I really think that, for example, one of the most important texts that I'm going through right now is Exodus 15:3, the Song of the Sea. Right after Pharaoh's chariots are thrown in the Sea of Reeds or the Red Sea, the people want to rejoice and they start singing. Songs are some of the oldest meaning-making systems that we have because you could remember through repetition and rhyme. So the Song of the Sea, the Song of Deborah, the Song of Miriam, the Song of Hannah, these are some of the oldest preserved linguistic containers in Hebrew that preserve this kind of Hebraic imagination. And they were born as a triadic root structure system. The Semitic root of a word is 3 consonants, and you play around with vowels, either 2 vowels or 3 vowels or 4 vowels. And the manipulation of that root is what gives you the more specialized meaning. So when I say, for example, bayit, it could mean house, it could mean clan, it could mean literally a house, it could mean the genealogical proximity to a person, the house of David, the house of Ignatius, that I recently wrote about on Martinalia, about the Jesuits. And so I think Paul is doing something really important. And I think I can see what he's doing, and I don't think I always agree with him on where he goes with it. I can agree with Paul because I believe he was a human being. I don't think he was God. I don't even think Christ was so fully God that Christ ceased to be human. And if that's true, we can entertain debate with these people who are dead, who left us these words. So rulership, wisdom, logic, there's these, in a non-dimensional plane, a triangle is the most stable structure, right? A 3-legged stool is more stable than a 4. Because if you have 4 and it's not even, you're going to get that little rocking thing. 3 is a universally magic number. In a non-dimensional space, a triangle is the first thing that can hold volume, dimensionless volume. In 3D space, in microgravity, you take a bunch of water, it's going to coagulate to itself and it's going to become a sphere. It's going to be becoming like a pulsating sphere. And we have come to be able to process information with the use of pi, which is 3.1459, all the rest. So those 3 things, when Paul says rulership, politics, and wisdom, Sophia, and then at the through line through it all with the Johannine literature, I'm most grateful for this emphasis on logic and the word and words that we share in community. I think that's what Paul is doing, or Saul is doing, and I think he really plays it up here in this discussion of wisdom and politics, or wisdom and rulership, here in 1 Corinthians 2. And that's what I wanted to point out. I'm sorry it took me forever to record, but I'm hoping to be able to release these ahead of time instead of late. So thank you for listening and tuning in. Thank you also for not doing whatever you do. If you came into this podcast years from when I recorded, that's cool too. But anyway, thank you for listening, and apologize again for being late. Well, them's fighting words for this week. Support Gruntworks on Venmo with username PewPewHQ, or visit pewpewhq.com/TFW to collaborate, send prayer requests, or read more of the Fightin' Word, my exegetical project centering rank-and-file believers. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review. Thanks for federating the faith with me. This has been Brother Logan, Semper Fam.